Good evening. Thought I'd take you on a little tour through my garden. This is my absolute favorite time of year. And after a day at the hospital, I spend time here to kind of reconnect. Oh, that's my Picasso knockoff that I did several years ago with a friend that had a brain disease, who's no longer with us. So anyway, today is Wednesday, June 24th, in the evening. It's about 7:45. It's a slight breeze. It's a little cool. But the weather's been so nice the last week or so. Looking down at my notes. So today was not a good day for Susie. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. Talk a little bit about what happened with me seeking insurance for her. I was hopeful going in and not so much coming out. What her activities were therapy-wise today. The thing that I would like to say, and somebody in our circle here that I'm communicating with shared with me that she thought that Susie would not like me posting her therapy sessions, and I agree, and I'm not doing this to, I don't know, disrespect her, I guess. But it's an easier way for me to communicate with you exactly where she's at. You can see it. And the other piece is some of these things I'm going to use as kind of tutorials for when and if she comes home, if we're able to do that. And so there's no disrespect from me to her. But I think, sometimes you need to set aside, I don't know. She's called herself vain sometimes. So set aside vanity. Anyway, I hope that people that are getting these videos will not share them with her. I don't have an intention of doing that. So it's basically me being the mouthpiece for her right now and sharing things about her from my perspective, my love for her, my compassion for her, my desire for her to get better, but also my respect in a way that wants her to have the best quality of life possible if she wants that. Okay, let's see. I got a surprise in the mail today, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. And finally, a story from her childhood, and the title of that story is "You Killed Mortimer." Okay, so not a good day for Susie today. Usually what they try to do is they try to get you out of bed relatively early and into the wheelchair. She did not want to do it. She did eat her breakfast, and I was trying to get them to give her more cereals and less of the sausage and pancake stuff. And I'm really wanting to have things that are fibrous, so it's going to benefit her in terms of bowel movements, that kind of thing. I did meet with the case manager today, and she said if she's on some kind of a bowel movement helper, if you will, that they would probably recommend that going home. I don't know if she's on that or not. Seems that she is regular from what I can tell. So I intended to get there at 9. I didn't get there till 9:30, and she had speech therapy at 9. It was the same woman that worked with her yesterday, Kim, and Kim was the one that was singing happy birthday with her and having her trying to hum, and also writing her name again, as I've described before, with kind of going over the highlighted. Kim highlighted her name with a highlighter and then had her follow it. And all the time, pretty much, Kim was assisting, but in the most limited way she could, and still get Susie to move her hand. And I think she did pretty well, and I videoed that, and I'll post it later. So that was 9 to 9, or 8:30. Let's see, 9 to 10 o'clock. Sorry. And then sometime in the morning, she had another therapist come in, recreational therapist. Her goal wasn't necessarily to do therapy, but kind of assess Susie in terms of what things she'd be interested in potentially. And recreational therapy is, doing hobbies, gardening, cooking, could be quilting, could be playing games, board games, card games, those kinds of things. And let's see what else. Can't think of anything else exactly, but so I had a brief talk with the therapist prior to her going in outside. I wanted to kind of prep her, and that Susie really wasn't a hobby person. I told her about Susie's rock painting, and she asked me about pets, and I said we don't have any right now. We used to, and Susie was very connected, particularly to our dog, who was a Shih Tzu. Turns out the therapist is a Shih Tzu owner, so there was a commonality. And what else? We have some videos of when we were dancing in Mexico, and our dance teacher on YouTube, and I showed her one of those, Susie dancing with a dance teacher, so she had a sense of her interest in dance. Can't think of everything else that we discussed, and that's why I usually do these in the morning. It gives me time to kind of collect my thoughts and write things down, but I thought, let's change it up, let's do something different, so we're doing something different. So getting back to the Susie not wanting to get out of bed, the other thing that was going on is she didn't take most of her meds, and her meds are being administered as whole pill form on a spoon that has applesauce. So you put the pill on the top of the applesauce, spoonful of applesauce, and it goes down the hatch. Basically, Susie did take an aspirin and a Tylenol for pain relief, and the aspirin, baby aspirin, for a blood thinning kind of situation. They had talked about putting her on blood thinners, but they decided not to. I'm not sure what the reasoning was, but I was okay with that because she does bruise very easily on her skin. This is prior to the stroke, and it would look like a hematoma or something, and she didn't like that. So didn't want anything that was going to impact her that way. She didn't take her thyroid, which is something she's taken since I've known her. She didn't take the blood pressure meds, didn't take the cholesterol meds. So I'm really concerned about that because, they finally did stabilize her. That's kind of what the last week or so was. And right, I think it was after 12 o'clock, she'd already had the speech, and she had the recreational therapy. I talked about the therapist having a dog, and there is a therapy dog, not the therapist's dog, but somebody else brings in a therapy dog. And it's a little black, and I think a black dog, probably 30, 40 pounds. And I told the therapist that Susie only likes dogs that don't have a pointy nose. So, something like a Shih Tzu, which it's kind of a smashed in face a little bit, would work, but I don't know about the pointy nose dog. So, and I think this all relates to childhood fears of, dogs that bite and such, like shepherds and Rottweilers and all that kind of thing. So, and she also talked about there's somebody that brings in a miniature horse, that actually they bring it into the unit, And, you know, they can pet it and touch it and all that kind of stuff. And she was asking Susie if she'd be interested in seeing a miniature horse. And Susie lit up a little bit, and she talked about them taking field trips, like to the Rose Garden, a park, or things like that. And I want to really encourage that, because that's going to be a real education, not just for her, but for me. And the therapist said I could join them. And they also have classes in the evenings, Monday through Thursday. Last night, Tuesday, they had an art class. So, you know, I'm doubtful that Susie will participate in those, but I'm hopeful. So, anyway, they've got a lot of resources and a lot of variety, and I'm hopeful that Susie will participate. Then a little after noon, you know, I've told you about the urination or lack thereof, and they wanted to get her out of bed and see if she would try to urinate while she was on the toilet. And basically how they do that is they have kind of a sling contraption that they they put your arms and legs in, and there's a spot in the what I call the crotch area that doesn't have any support or nothing in the way for you to do your business. And they have this mechanical thing with a like a nylon belt, looks like the fabric from a seat belt, but a heavy duty one. And literally this thing will retract and pick you up, and then you can slide it on a track in the ceiling all the way to the bathroom. And I know they'd used that in the past to get her into the bathroom for showering and also for a bowel movement. So it wasn't a first time, but Susie said she didn't want to do it, didn't want to try. This is so important from the hospital's perspective, to start training you to sit on the pot, so to speak, and do your business. At least try. And she wasn't willing to do that. Then lunch came. I'd worked with the dietitian yesterday to try some things that I thought she might be interested in. For breakfast, more of the cereals. I think I've already mentioned this. Oatmeal and a porridge. And she had scrambled eggs and I think peaches. And all this is like baby food consistency. And she ate the scrambled eggs and the peaches, and she had one or two bites of the porridge, which I think was a savory. I was told it was savory. And they brought her a bowl of oatmeal, which previously they said they were concerned with, you know, the size of the oats and being able to go down her esophagus. But apparently that wasn't a problem, and she had about 6 spoons of that, and I had requested some brown sugar because she has a little bit of a sweet tooth. So because I wasn't present, I really couldn't give you my perspective of her liking or not liking, but I think to a certain degree she liked it if she had 6 spoonsfuls. Let's see what else. So lunch was enchilada and some other things. I didn't see all the detail, but she chowed down on that enchilada. So, and again, baby food consistency. So I didn't get a close look at it. I was speaking with somebody else that's part of the support team. You know, I'm really feeling pulled when I'm in the room. I want to be observing her, Susie, with the therapist and see what kinds of things they're doing. So potentially I can learn some of this. I'm not looking to be a therapist, but I'm looking to carry on what the therapy has started. Before lunch, she was catheterized because she wouldn't go to the bathroom. And they were concerned about a potential for a bladder infection. Said that happens frequently in this ward or unit. And so lab results later in the day did indicate that she does have a bladder infection. And when I left, the meds were supposedly on their way to her room. So In the afternoon, she was scheduled for OT, which is occupational therapy, and PT, physical therapy, and Susie just refused to get out of bed. You know, they require that you get in the wheelchair. And so I think that, and they said, you know, she made it real clear that they weren't going to take her out of bed. So, you know, she's strong willed, and hopefully she can apply that strong will to getting better. But I think, you know, having a bladder infection's no fun. And I think that colored all this other possibility. I hope they don't think negatively of her because she has a bladder infection in terms of moving forward with therapy. I don't think they will, but that's just a concern of mine. Let's see. Covered therapy. Okay. Oh, I'd mentioned yesterday. I mentioned I went in at Social Security to see if I could activate Part B at this time, and you can't. You can only do it during open enrollment when you turn 65, and if your spouse is on some kind of a group plan. Why that relates to that, I'm not exactly sure, but that's what it is. And then today the goal was to try to apply for what is commonly known as Obamacare, Affordable Care Act. And I was kind of shut down on that one too, where they said if somebody's on Medicare, even though it's the minimal version, the Part A, you can't pursue anything with the Affordable Care Act. So I was shut down there, and the medical social worker was kind of surprised, and he was really questioning me, and I said, hey, you check it out. And so we did, and he said that, he said he learned something. Apparently things are changing, and people that are on the low end of the financial spectrum are getting squeezed. So anyway, that's what it is. He's come up with a possible another approach, so we're going to explore that tomorrow at 9:30, and I'll update you when that is either completed or goes south. Let's see. I think that's about it, except for the last part, which is the story from Susie's childhood that I'm titling You Killed Mortimer. And it's a story about her and her grandparents, her maternal grandparents. Their names were Anna and Sam Cohen. And they immigrated from Russia. They did not immigrate together. They were the youngest in their families, and I believe they were like 14 or 15 when they were put on boats, never to see or speak with their families again. And at the time in Russia, there was a lot of anti-Semitism and pogroms going on, so I think this was a fairly common thing to get at least one person in the family out of the country, and usually it was one of the younger ones. And so Sam and Anna immigrated to New York City. Somehow, I don't know how, they met in New York City. They married in New York City, and Anna had a problem with asthma. And so they moved around a little bit to help find a place that would alleviate her asthma issues, because they immigrated, I'm thinking, somewhere in the 1902, 1907 time frame. So there really wasn't a lot available in terms of medical care. So they went to Dallas, Texas, I understand, and then later on they went to Kansas City, Missouri, where they raised their children for a good part of their childhood, and then eventually moved to Denver. And I'm thinking that, again, that move to Denver was asthma related. Denver has a drier climate because it's mile high. So that's my guess. So anyway, Susie loved these grandparents. She loved to stay over to their home. They had a very nice home. But their home was in the west part of Denver, which was kind of considered the barrio. And her grandpa had done very well in business. He owned a variety of commercial real estate. He'd also done financing of automobiles. I hear I hear like a chopper in the background. I'm going to go inside so I don't have to compete with it. Just a second. Okay, close the door. Turn on a light so I'm not in the dark. Move my briefcase and have a seat. Pardon my hand. Sorry for that. Oh, need to make a backlighting adjustment. Okay. So anyway, forget exactly where I was at, but her grandfather was a very successful guy for an immigrant with a limited education. He was just a sweet man that Susie has very many fond memories of both of her grandparents. One of her memories is her grandfather would come and pick her up, and take her to their home for the weekend. And this was probably in the late 1940s. And she says she remembers barely being able to see over the dashboard, and that her grandfather had a huge hood ornament, which was common in that time. And that thing made an impression on her. So anyway, she'd stay with Grandpa Sam and Grandma Anna, and they were very sweet to her. Grandpa Sam would make her silver dollar-sized pancakes, or they had things like cream of wheat, and they had these special spoons, and I don't know what's on the spoons, if it was Mickey Mouse or something like that, but child-oriented, and they were just very accommodating of her as a child, and so that was wonderful. And in the Jewish faith, you have the Sabbath dinner on Friday night, and so in preparation of the Sabbath dinner, I guess Susie was over there on a Friday in the day. They took her out to the country, which is where they would buy chickens. And they would buy a live chicken, and it would be kind of packaged in, like, I'm going to say, a little wooden crate. So the chicken could see out but couldn't get out. And so Susie's in the back seat with the chicken in this wooden crate in their little slits so Susie can see it. And she's captivated by this chicken. And she's saying to her grandpa, "Grandpa, will the chicken hurt me?" And he said, "No, darling." Or he would say, "Dolly." Dolly, that was his word for any female. "Dolly, it's okay. You're safe." So anyway, on this ride back from the country, wherever that was, out of the city limits, to go back to their home, Susie decides to name the chicken, because she's starting to grow fond of it. And she names the chicken Mortimer. Now, Susie at the time had no idea what Mortimer's future was. And when they were having dinner, I could be getting this wrong. I believe it was when they were having the Sabbath dinner, Susie realizes that what's being served for dinner is Mortimer. And she freaks out and was beside herself. And from that moment on, in her childhood, for a good period of time, she would not eat chicken. And there's another story associated with a similar idea that I'll tell you later. But that's what happened to Mortimer. Their grandparents killed Mortimer. They tried to reconsole her. She didn't see the act. So I guess they were pretty good at keeping it under wraps. But it was traumatic for her. She was a deeply sensitive little girl, and she still is a deeply sensitive person, although you might not see that on the surface at times. So anyway, guys, thanks for listening. That's all I have. We'll talk to you later. Love you.